Hi, this is Norm Davis, and today my subject is KLPL in Lake Providence. Well, in 1972, we went to KLPL in Lake Providence. Now, Lake Providence in those days was a booming town. We had like 3 grocery stores, there were department stores downtown, there were banks, there were drugstores. I mean, it was a booming place in 1972. The absentee owner of KLPL was Ben Enix. Ben had hired a manager, and we won't mention any names, that just wasn't selling. He was programming pretty good. He was doing a country format, which I really didn't care for at the time, but he was not out selling commercials and collecting money. And in order to operate a radio station, that's what you have to do. Well, I was working at KMLB in Monroe at the time, and this was the one on 1440, not the one on 540 like it is now. And I contacted Ben, and we met, and I was hired as the station manager at KLPL. Now, we were making $600 a month. My wife and I, we were both working together, making $600 a month there at KLPL. They basically had no money, is what it boils down to, and Ben had put a pot full of money in, and he just didn't have any more. So what he did, he says, we'll pay you $600 a month. We'll give you 7% interest every year as long as you stay, so you can become an owner. Well, that's what I wanted to do, was to become an owner. And KLPL, when I was 23 years old, presented me an opportunity to become an owner. Well, as time marched along, we got business on the station. Things picked up. We were a top 40 format, and actually sounded pretty good for the area. We called ourselves the Big Number One, is what we and really, we were the number 1 station in that particular area. And of course, Oak Grove was our main competition, and he would come on and say, we're number 2 because our listeners are number 1. But that's okay. We were the big number 1. Now, after a while, Ben said, would you like to buy into the station? I said, yeah, and so I bought 25% interest in the station for $25,000. Now, that's an important figure, $25,000. So at this point, I owned 33% of the interest in the radio station, but not enough under Louisiana law to make any challenges if something came up. Of course, I didn't know that at the time, but things did come up. And Ben, just a few months later, says, you've got $25,000 in this station. Why don't you go ahead and buy it for $250,000? I said, wait a second. Something is wrong here now. I've bought 25% interest for $25,000, and you're trying to sell me 67% for $250,000. That doesn't match. And so we had big difficulties. Well, I decided to leave and went to Vicksburg. And about 3 months later, he called me back and said, let's see if we can work out something. So what I did, I assumed some of the debts and paid him $12,500 for that 67% interest. And that's how I became the owner of KLPL. But during all this stuff that transpired and everything, I kind of lost my interest. But anyway, we kind of got things going again. Money started rolling. I refinanced the station through an investment company there in Lake Providence, and was happy until Don Armstrong came along and offered me an opportunity to go back to Toledo, and I've mentioned that in some previous things. But I had a guy who was interested in buying the station, and I'll just say Jerry was his name, and he was supposed to take care of all the paperwork and file the station with the FCC to get it transferred and so on. Well, I went ahead and moved up to Toledo. He did not follow through on doing the paperwork with the FCC. Well, as time marched along, I had to come back to Lake Providence and take the station back. But the guy I worked with over in Monroe, Tom Gay, had done a great job down in the station in Columbia. He was making money down there, and he had a financial backer, and he was interested in buying KLPL.
How about a perfect Christmas gift and a savings?
So Tom became my Santa Claus. He paid us $25,000, which I originally invested, and assumed the debts that were left behind, and became the owner of KLPL. So a great little run there from 1972 up to about 77, 78, somewhere in there, as we were in the ownership end of KLPL. Things started off great. They kind of went downhill, and then came back and we finished up pretty good shape on that one.
Sunflower in Lake Providence is your store in 74, where you get gold bond stamps with every purchase and double gold bond stamps on Wednesday. You'll enjoy shopping Sunflower more. It's the store with a bigger selection and everyday low food prices.
So eventually what happened, KLPL off the air like a lot of other small-town market radio stations. It is really tough to survive in, this is 2019 when I'm recording this, and a lot of the AMs are just falling right and left. Of course, we did have an FM, but it's tough in these little small towns. Well, it's kind of interesting to go back and think about some of the days from 1972, probably on up to about 1978, as I was involved with KLPL in Lake Providence.